Let's start with the inspiration of this video series, the game between Alexander Grishuk and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. The line with e4, c5, knight c3, d6 and f4. If you watched the introduction of this video series, then you already know that I'm recommending two moves on d6. One is f4, which we will see right now, and another one is knight ge2. I'm not going to reveal yet which is my preference because I want you to watch both videos to take a close look at all lines and then decide which suits your style, which you like more and which you will use in your game. You can use both of them as well. Let's take a look at f4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop c4, knight c6, castle and e6. The other option for black here is to go knight f6, although I wouldn't recommend it for black players to go knight f6, because I think that after d3, castle and queen e1, the usual Grand Prix attack for white is much easier when the knight is on f6 rather than when it is on e7 after e6. That's why we will take a close look at e6 and d4, which is a very interesting pawn sacrifice which Alexander Grishuk introduced in his online blitz game. The normal way to continue this line is to play d3, knight ge7, queen e1 with the idea to get the queen on h4. And after castle, white has several options. White can go bishop b3 to wait a bit. White can go queen h4 or f5, which is very direct. But I don't think that any of these sacrifices and attack works for white. I am playing this line myself with black, and I recently had a game where my opponent went a4 here. It's not a very popular move, and probably the idea is that after knight a5 she wanted to go bishop a2. But here, of course, it's possible to go d5 because it's with tempo and black is totally fine. But I decided to play very concrete. I wanted to threaten the c2 pawn, bishop b3, and play knight ec6. Now, the idea is that the queen on h4 doesn't want to go anymore because white wants to attack in this game and not exchange the pieces. So how to continue attacking for white is quite difficult. My opponent decided to play a very quiet move, king h1, which is a mistake because after knight a5, white is in a big trouble. The knight d3 is a very big threat. For example, anything like g4 would run into knight d3, c takes d3 and knight b3, or I could also take on b3 first. My opponent played queen e2 to defend the d3 pawn, but after taking on b3 and b6 I had perfect position, and then I was able to convert it into a full point. So another option for white is here to go directly f5 and try to create an attack on the king side. But after g takes f5, queen h4, of course the idea is to get either bishop h6 or bishop g5 or knight g5. But black wants to take on e4 first. Knight e4 is not good because it would run into d5. And knight g5 as well does not win any tempo, because after h6, knight e4, d5 is again the usual trick. So after f takes e4, d takes e4, and knight g6, I think that white is in trouble because he sacrificed the pawns, but he doesn't have any compensation for it. Queen h5, of course, with the idea of bishop either bishop g5, bishop h6, or knight g5, but I think with a very strong move f6, black controls everything, and in the end his extra pawn will be just a good extra pawn. That is why I don't think that f5 is scary, though it looks scary for black. What about queen h4? After queen h4, black wants to take an action into the center. So d5, bishop b3, and knight a5, and I'd like to comment on these moves because it's very important to get this light squared bishop, because if there is no light squared bishop, then black has quite a lot of defensive moves, like let's say he can trade on e4 and then play f6 or f5, and this bishop would not be annoying anymore. Or if f5 is played from white side, then take on f5, bishop h6, first take on b3, if bishop g7, king g7, and ab, still play f6, control all the squares, the g5 square, and then black is not in trouble. I think black is doing very, very good. If white, of course, does not want to take on g7 first, queen g5 would not work, because there is always knight g6, so black is not under mate threat. And if ab, then once again f6 can be played, and or knight g6 as well. So this is why I think that d3 is not anymore that popular, and d4 looks really energetic and really something to hold on. Now black is under an option to take this d4 pawn with a knight or with the pawn, because to leave this pawn on d4, it would be a disaster. After, let's say, knight ge7, if black wants to ignore that white opened the center and played the d4 without any problems, it would be very bad, because after taking on c5, taking on d8, knight d8, knight b5, all is very forced. Castle and rook d1, it looks like, okay, come on, it's not a big deal, black will develop, but black's main problem here is to develop. a6, the active a6, knight d6, and b5 does not work, because after bishop e2, knight d6, yes, it looks like black is doing okay for now, but if you take a close look at this position, you will understand that this bishop is in horrible situation, and after c3, sorry, not yet bishop e3, because the b2 pawn is hanging, so we have to play c3 to be able to develop the other bishop on c1. Rook d8, because bishop cannot develop. If bishop d7, then knight f7 just wins the pawn. And if rook d8 with the idea of bishop d7, black does not have time to develop. If we give one tempo to black, maybe he will be fine. But after bishop e3, the c5 pawn is in big danger. You don't really want to go c4, because after c4 there is a lot of moves like bishop b6 or a4 or knight g5, all kind of moves that give advantage to white. So there might be a tiny trick if it works for black, which is knight d4, but after taking on d4, rook d6, and here white has two options. Both give advantage. One is to play d5, and another one is to just make a logical move and take on c5. Rook d1, bishop b2, and rook d6. And Black's position is completely paralyzed. Look at these pieces. The knight on e7, he cannot go on c6, he cannot go on f5, neither on d5, it's completely stuck on e7. This bishop is horrible on c8, it cannot even go bishop b7 right now because it loses the piece after the fork with rook d7. The passed pawn on c5 will be very strong, so this is definitely very good position for white. Another choice for white will be d5 move. After d5, the idea is to take this pawn on c5 with the bishop. So if, let's say, e takes d5, bishop c5, rook d7, and e5, Black's position looks disaster. It looks really disgusting, to be honest. All pieces are passive. They are not consolidated, and the pawn on d5 will be weak. At some point it will be lost. So for sure this is very big advantage for white. That is why knight ge7 after de4 is not a smart option, and Black really has to decide either on cd4 or knight d4. Knight d4 was chosen by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave in the Blitz game. Very logical, because you want to take this pawn with the piece. Don't destroy your pawn structure, and just enjoy the extra pawn. But I think that the correct way and the only way to play against this line for Black is to take the pawn with the c pawn. And the idea to take the pawn with the c pawn is that you what happened after knight d4 would not be possible in this position. C takes d4, knight b5. This is definitely what white wants to play. And knight ge7. You cannot do anything to defend this pawn on d4. No e5 because something will happen to f7. No queen b6 because the pawn is hanging on d6. And you just have to develop. There is another move to play, which is d5, and the idea is that after ed5, ed5, and bishop d5 is the trick. You have to pay attention to this because queen d5 is not possible. After knight c7, Black is losing the queen, so that's a little trick here. But Black can go knight ge7 and bishop b3 or bishop c6, knight c6, then rook e1, and with a very complicated play. But I think most accurate for Black, the most accurate way for Black to play is knight ge7, let white take on d4, then Black goes d5, and the idea is that on ed5, you don't want to take ed5 and transpose into the same position, but you want to take on d4, knight d4, castle, because white cannot take on e6, this guy is hanging on d4, c3, and knight d5. And I think that this position looks slightly pleasant for Black because white has a very unnatural f4 pawn, which shouldn't be there. The pawn shouldn't be on f4 in this position. It is weakness rather than strength for white. So I think this is pleasant position for Black. That's why, not to get worse with white, after knight ge7, white should go bishop b3, a very nice waiting move and prophylactic against d5. Castle, knight bd4. And this is the position which you can achieve after the f4 and d4, which both players should go. The plan is, of course, for white to develop bishop e3, queen d2, rooks in the center, and for black to go a6, b5, and knight a5. What can I say about this position is that I think it's playable for both sides. It just depends on your taste. If you like it for white, then you are free to play this position because it looks quite promising to develop it, to develop in the center, to press a bit on the d6 pawn and to have a little pressure in the center. But if you don't like it, then we have another option for white, which will be in the next video, the knight ge2 line. But I definitely recommend you to practice this position before you play, to get deeply into the line and to understand what are the plans and motives in this position and why and how it works. So I would stop here because you already know the plans, and I wouldn't tell you that this position is better for white because I think it's quite double-edged and playable, but it's playable for both sides. So to reach this position, your opponent has to be very precise and has to know that this is the correct way to play against d4. I would definitely try it myself in the game, as we have two options of playing knight ge2 or f4. I think it's a great option to try as well. Let's see what happened in the game. In the game, knight d4 was played, and after knight d4, bishop e3. This is the move that I was like, oh wow, it's just white is not doing anything but just develops and just like this, sacrifice the pawn for what? To stop black's development? Let's see, because bishop e3 is a very, very nice key move of the position. Of course, you don't want to take on d4, bishop d4, king h1, and a6. Maybe you can create something with f5, but definitely it's not sufficient for any serious attack. So this is why bishop e3, knight f3 was played in the game. Queen b6 is another option for black to stabilize the position in the center of the knight d4 to protect it. But now white has a very strong response with e5. Closing the diagonal, very important, and asking black, okay, you're not developed, your king is in the center, and you really have a big problem. What are you going to do now? After e5, black can, of course, take on e5 or take on b2 or take on f3 first. Take on f3 first, queen f3, and queen b2. But it's bad because after knight b5, not only this guy on d6 is hanging, but a lot of threats. Knight c7 is threat, knight d6 is threat, and this queen will be somehow trapped on b2 as well. So this is not good for black. e5, d takes e5, f takes e5, and queen b2 is not good as well because we just take on d4, cd4, bishop d4. It's clear for everybody that it looks disaster for black. Queen c3, bishop b5, king f8, and knight f5. And this is the problem. This king is the problem for black. Queen d8 mate. Black cannot do anything against it. Beautiful, beautiful line. And let's see now if black wants to take on b2 directly. After e5, queen b2, Now be careful, because if you want to play the same knight d4, then after queen c3 we have a problem because the d file is not open and you cannot play knight f5. So knight b5 should be played to sacrifice the bishop, but after king h1, bishop f8, knight c7, and knight a8, it still looks pleasant for white, but this is not needed because after queen b2, just knight e4 and black will be soon completely crushed. I mean, you have king in the center and black can have many pawns, as much pawns as he wants, but this is over. This is over for black. So knight f3 was played in the game, and after knight f3, queen f3, knight e7. This is the position where white could crush his opponent with a very direct attack. f5, and here to accept this sacrifice with black pieces you have to be really courageous. f5, but there is no other way because you don't want to allow f6 or taking on e6 and then queen f7. So taking on f5, taking on f5 and knight f5 looks like the only way for black to continue the play, but after g4, castle, because you cannot go, the pawn on f7 is hanging, castle, gf, bishop f5, bishop f4, queen h4 and bishop d5, complete domination on white squares and extra piece. There is not enough compensation for the piece. Yes, black has 3 pawns for the piece, but in this position pawns are much weaker than the pieces because you need pieces to play, and if pieces are traded, then the pawns will be weak as well. If after ef5, bishop f5, then after rook a e1, castle would not be ideal for black because bishop g5 is another problem for black. The pin on e7, bishop e5 and knight d5, black is losing the piece and there is no defense. So I actually don't know what black was planning to do after f5 because the position looks very bad for black. But just for just so that you feel more comfortable in this position, let's take a look at the game because it was a brilliant game with a brilliant attack and with some brilliant missed chances to defend the position. So rook a d1, castle, bishop c5. If not castle, then black cannot do anything. I mean, b6 would not work because then knight b5 and d6 pawn is lost. So after castle, bishop c5, queen c7, bishop d6, bishop e7, rook e8, and it looks like the position is simplified, but of course white still has an advantage because black needs to develop. Any other move like bishop d6 probably would give a pleasant tiny bit advantage to white, but Grzesiek decided to play brilliantly and make a very nice positional sacrifice, which is e5. When I was watching this live, I was like, oh wow, now you see, now you really feel the difference between super grandmasters and yourself. I was like, wow, this is the move that impressed me so much because if black doesn't take on e7, then black's position is paralyzed. There is no b6. You cannot develop the bishop on c8, and this bishop on e5 is closed as well. Knight e4 coming, it's just disaster. So you have to take it. Rook d8, bishop f8, and this is when grandmasters show you that they are so strong that you have to learn from them, because there is no direct attack, there is no obvious factor that you will get back this piece or you will mate black. And to create this attack, you need a lot of moves still. It's not like checkmate. This is very difficult for me to sacrifice something when there is no obvious things going on and you're not gaining back the material back in a short time. Knight e4, king g7, knight f6. This knight is a beast because then none of the bishops can move. Even if a rook was on c7, the bishop couldn't move because there is a mate on g8. So here was the only chance for black to use the brilliant defense of this position, and it was a very, very strong, super strong, I don't know who can find it, especially in a blitz game, rook d7. This is wow, this is amazing. The idea of rook d7 is that you have to take it, otherwise, no, you shouldn't take it, sorry. If you take it, then after bishop e7, black is winning. White is in huge trouble. The problem is that you cannot go rook e8 because there is queen d4, king h1, and queen d7. And that's it. It's over. 2 pieces for the rook at the moment, and even this rook is lost. It's over. So after rook d7, only move to play is rook d1 and rook d8, queen c2. This is not the same as it happened in the game, because in the game white had rook on f1 and rook on e7, and I will show you the difference right now. Queen c2 was played in the game and queen h3. So if after queen c2 white went queen h3 now, then after bishop c5 it is white who will be mated, because now nothing helps. King f1 you cannot escape because queen f2 is there, and king h1, then queen c1 is mate in 2 moves. So it's brilliant because this bishop, yes, it is closing the 8th rank, but it also can be very dangerous. Knight f6, queen c2, queen h3, h5, queen g3, and now it is white who is playing brilliantly and showing that these pieces have never been in play, and I'm not pieced down, I'm just gonna mate you. Queen f5, rook d1, calm, normal play, b6, and rook f8. This rook d1 was the last move to bring the last piece in the attack, because after b6, take, and rook d8, black cannot do anything. King g7, rook g8. Yes, there is no mate yet, but after brilliant h4, black cannot defend queen g5. No bishop b7 helps, because after queen g5 it's a beautiful mate. And even if queen g4, yes, it's a bit cheeky to not to take the queen with knight g4, but to play just like this, and on king h5 here, and king h2, there is a mate after g3, and black cannot do anything about it. He has an extra rook, but the king is most important piece in the chess game, as we know, and it's gonna be mated. There is nobody to help him. I hope you got as much pleasure from this game as I got it when I was watching online, and especially after analyzing it for this video series. It is the inspiration of this video series, and I'm really happy to share it with you and to share this analysis with you. it's about you once again to decide you like f4 or knight ge2. The only problem that I found for f4 is that after d4, cd4, knight b5, and knight g7, this is the key position of the line. If you like it, go for it. If you don't like it, stay tuned and see you in the next video where we will see the knight ge2 line.